One of my jobs as Secretary General of the United Nations is to establish a strong partnership with the United Nations' strong supporters, that is, United States of America. I can think of no place better to say this than in Chicago, the cosmopolitan center of the American heartland. This is a part of my ongoing efforts as Secretary General of the United Nations to reach out to the major American cities, major American citizens, to talk about the agendas and goals of the United Nations. United Nations and United States share same goals and objectives. That's a peace and security, development, and human rights. In that regard, I feel very much privileged to visit Chicago as my second such reach out to the American cities. I understand that this is the first visit by any Secretary General of the United Nations, and in that regard, I feel very much honored. But I've always had a special feeling for Chicago. Even as a young man, it always occupied an outsized space in my imagination, famous for its skyscrapers and its big can-do spirit. Chicago is a global city. It invented futures trading. It is the home to Boeing and Abbott Labs and McDonald's. This afternoon, I met some members of the Rotary International who have led a $600 million worldwide campaign to eradicate polio. Sometime this year, their work will be done. Polio will be history, like a smallpox. First, our world is changing. The United Nations founded 62 years ago to save succeeding generation from scourge of war, as our charter famously put it. Today, however, the big issues are very different. We all know how global terrorism threatens governments and destroys societies. We know how infectious diseases can go global and how an out-of-control pandemic could kill millions of people. We know how global warming threatens the planet. No nation alone, however resourceful, however powerful may be, can deal with such problems. That is my second priority. Now, operating effectively in today's world requires partnership. It requires cooperation, engagement, and dialogue, as well as global rules. That's where the United Nations comes in. The United Nations today is the world's only truly global institution. Americans sense this. Polls show that 74% believe the United Nations should play a larger role in the world. A similar percentage of people believe that US foreign policy should be conducted in partnership with the United Nations.
What other experiences and influences have there been in your life that you would say are guiding you in your role as Secretary General? What else has been meaningful to you?
Well, this is Secretary General of the United Nations. Some people say that this is the most impossible job in the world. I knew that, knowing that, I really ventured to serve for the international community. During last 1 year, I have been traveling many countries around the world, particularly developing countries in African continent. I have been really humbled by what I have seen, so many challenges, so many conflicts there. This is exactly what we need to address with the collective will of the international community. Whole 53 countries in African continent are still not able to overcome the abject poverty and lack of sanitation, lack of educational opportunities. Now, as a Secretary General, I am committed to work to address this issue. I may not be able to finish all my commitment during my very limited mandate, but with strong support of international community, particularly if the United States demonstrate their leadership. I'm sure that we will be able to address that.
Mr. Secretary General, you've just come back from a very important trip to Africa, which, among other places, took you to Kenya in an effort to help bring about an end to the violence and the resolution of the political impasse in the country. Could you share with us some of your impressions from that visit and what you took away from it?
It's very sad. Kenya has been known as a pillar of stability, and they have made a great economic development, and they are well on track of Millennium Development Goals. Suddenly, they have been engulfed in this violence right after the December presidential election. I met President Kibaki and also opposition leader Odinga and the Kenyan leadership elders. My message at that time was very simple and clear. Stop this violence. Stop killing each other. Then they must look at the future, brighter future of their country. This is not what we see in 21st century, killing each other. So they must first of all stop this killing each other and resolve all the issues through dialogue in a peaceful way. Now, United Nations Charter clearly stipulates that all the pending issues, all the conflict issues should be resolved in a peaceful manner. I have urged political leaders that they should look at the source of their grievances, but resolve in a peaceful manner through dialogue. That was my simple but strong message. My predecessor, Kofi Annan, Secretary General, is now tirelessly working with the political leaders. And we have made some progress, and I hope that they will be able to restore peace and stability as soon as possible.
Our third question is from Hall Healy.
Mr. Secretary General, as you know well, for over 50 years, the Korean Demilitarized Zone has been a symbol of separation and war, but it is also one of the truly global treasures in terms of biodiversity and cultural resources. In your view, how could the process of preserving the demilitarized zone's resources be a catalyst in helping to resolve some of the conflicts and tension on the Korean Peninsula? And what could your and the United Nations potential roles be in that process?
Personally and officially, I'd like to see an end as soon as possible of this demilitarized zone in the Korean Peninsula. Unfortunately, Korea is still divided. I think the only divided in the world even after the collapse of Cold War. DMZ has been serving to prevent any unnecessary, unwanted military conflict. I think in that regard, it has served the purpose. But at this time, in this 21st century, when globalization process is going on, and all this reconciliatory process is going on in the Korean Peninsula and in the region surrounding the Korean Peninsula. First and foremost, Korean people should be able to reunify themselves through the process of reconciliation and exchanges and cooperation. Now has been going on very encouraging development of situation with the 6 parties joint agreement on decolonization of the Korean Peninsula. North Korea has committed to this the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, disenabling nuclear facilities and programs, with the eventual ultimate goal of dismantling their nuclear programs. I hope this process will continue as smoothly as possible, while the other concerned parties to the Sixth Party will cooperate fully. Now, with this process, we hope, sincerely hope, that there will come permanent peace and security, permanent stability on the Korean Peninsula, changing this current armistice agreement into a peace treaty. That's my hope. And I'm sure that this is the aspiration of the whole Korean people. Thank you very much.
Our last question is from Charles Boberskoy. Charlie?
Your Excellency, a personal question. Is there any 20th century political leader who is a hero of yours or someone you really admire? And then as a second part, is there any American president that you really, really admire?
Maybe we will have another opportunity privately to discuss about this.